Okay, so hello everyone. Today is Wednesday, excuse me, May the 31st. This is the end of May. Beginning tomorrow is the beginning of June. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Um, and we are going to be continuing in our study of A Course in Miracles. We're beginning chapter 3. So, chapters 1 and chapters 2, if you all, ever feel in the mindset to do so, just go ahead and do your own little review, or if you would like for us to do a review, just let us know. Now, in lieu of a prayer today, I've asked Forrest if he can give us a song involving the word prophecy. Are you able to do that for us today, Forrest?
Yes, can you hear me? Yes.
Oh, now we're having some sound difficulties. At first we were hearing you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Forrest? Oh, we can't hear you.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, you're breaking up real bad. We can't hear you.
Okay, I'm just going to listen today because my phone's messing up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem. I'm sorry myself.
Well, try it now. Whatever you're doing now is working.
Okay. For this gift in prophecy today, we see the future, but we stay in the now. In the gift of prophecy, sees things more clear for those on this universe. And in this universe with prophecy, it's a gift to see the future. And oh, now, and now, and now the prophecy is now in the future. And this ministry is growing each day.
Thank you. And thank you for the prophecy. Thank you for prophesying over our ministry. Thank you so much. Okay, so go, Harriet, would you like to begin?
I can. Today we're starting in chapter 3, The Innocent Perception. And section 1 is Atonement Without Sacrifice.
Atonement without sacrifice.
Yeah.
Wow. What does that mean?
We'll probably be, it'll probably be explained as we dive into it. So let's begin.
Okay.
A further point must be perfectly clear before any residual fear still associated with miracles can disappear. Let me read that again. A further point must be perfectly clear before any residual fear still associated with miracles can disappear. The crucifixion did not establish the atonement. The resurrection did. Many sincere Christians have misunderstood this. No one who is free of the belief in scarcity could possibly make this mistake. If the crucifixion is seen from an upside-down point of view, it does not appear as if God permitted and even encouraged one of his sons to suffer because he was good. This particularly unfortunate interpretation, which arose out of the projection, has led many people to be bitterly afraid of God. Such anti-religious concepts enter into many religious, read that again. Such anti-religious concepts enter into many religions. Yet the real Christian should pause and ask, how could this be? It is likely that God himself would be capable of the kind of thinking which his own words have clearly stated is unworthy of his son. I think I misinterpreted that last sentence. Let me read it again. Is it likely that God himself would be capable of the kind of thinking of which his own words have clearly stated is unworthy of his son? Wow. Atonement without sacrifice. And I did not, and I should have looked up the words atonement and sacrifice,
You can if you want to.
which I can do right now.
Yeah, you can do it now.
Yeah.
I guess, one of the big I don't know, one of the contexts here is that that the atonement about the crucifixion did not establish the atonement, the resurrection did. Not as far as he dropped off, came back. Yeah, and I always thought that it was the resurrection that established the atonement. But it was, but then again, you're right. We have been shown that
that's what we've been taught.
We've been taught that it's by the blood. It's by the blood. So so the crucifixion was the thing that created the atonement.
Okay. To back up now, atonement, to reconcile or set at one. And this is from the glossary in the terms for A Course in Miracles. From A Course in Miracles. Atonement refers to the recovering of at one-ment. And I just read somewhere the other day, and I don't remember where, and I think it was from A Course in Miracles, but they kind of dismiss the whole idea of at one-ment. Specifically, dismiss the whole idea of at one-ment. In other words, breaking up the word atonement, at one-ment.
Yeah.
And I didn't write it down, which I should have, but it was just within the last day or two that I read something that kind of dismissed that whole idea that we should look at the word as one, atonement, the word atonement as one word. And of course, the glossary from Course in Miracles says specifically the reconciliation of God and his children, which is achieved by the wiping away of what caused the rift, the children's sins. The Course in Miracles, the sins are wiped away by the realization that they were not real in the first place, and hence that the rift with God never happened. So what they're saying is there never was a separation. So
right.
Why should we, look at it at one atonement? We're at one with God. And Charles Fillmore I get it. Reconciliation between God and man through Christ, the uniting of our consciousness with the higher consciousness. Jesus became the way by which all who accept him may pass over to the higher consciousness. We have atonement through him. And to me, that is talking about the resurrection as opposed to the, is that Richard coming in?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Forrest is back with it. And sacrifice, the act of voluntarily losing something in order to gain something else for the sake of a deity, for the sake of another person, or some worthy cause. Sacrifice is totally unknown to God, for he only gives without cost and knows nothing of loss.
And that's on
That's glossary of terms from A Course in Miracles.
okay. And that's for sacrifice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Well, this right here is the crux of Christianity. You know,
Mhm.
you know, that, you know, the crucifixion is the
Sacrifice.
it is the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And the necessary sacrifice, because it was the shedding of the blood that was necessary. The resurrection, to me, I guess I always see them in combination. I never saw them as two separate things.
Thing.
Yeah.
You mean the crucifixion and the resurrection?
Right. It was
Well,
always
one had to occur in order for the other to occur. One had to happen in order for the other to occur.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess maybe for me, this, you know, this well, this is sentence number 2. Let's go back. Let's start off with sentence number 1, then we can get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
A further point must be perfectly clear before any residual fear still associated with miracles can disappear.
Yeah.
Well,
you know, and you know, and I don't know, but when does that happen? When do you get rid of all residual fear? You know, I think that that's still, you know, I think that is always ongoing, you know, and but we are always seeking, you know, to be more and more and more like that essence that's in us. You know, so yeah, we do have to, get past all of those fears, you know.
True.
And still associated, and especially it says still associated with miracles, you know, because, you know, we still, still, there's still a part in my mind where, if I don't know if anybody, saw the movie, the Song of Bernadette.
I did, but it's been quite some time.
Oh my gosh, one of my favorite movies. You know, my confirmation name is Bernadette. So I often sign Bernadette as a name. I have studied, her as a historical figure. I would love to have, to go over there and see her. That would be wonderful. But my thoughts of miracles are still, one person who was so pure that it came through. Although all of us do miracles all the time, constantly, miracles there's still somewhere in my consciousness where a miracle is a big thing. And they are a big thing, like, what Bernadette has done, or Jesus, or anybody else that was, that was working miracles. But we do have, so, there's still parts of me that, am I special enough?
Yes.
Am I worthy enough?
Yeah.
Can I, can it be me? So yeah, that's really a perfect sentence there.
And listen to this. This is from the chapter we just finished, section 5, paragraph 5, and the first sentence reads, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
What's the word atonement mean?
Hold on.
Yeah, let's read it again.
Okay. The sins are wiped away by the realization that they were not real in the first place. This is, of course, in Miracles definition. And hence, the rift with God never happened. Therefore, atonement in the Course is said to undo errors rather than sin, correct perception rather than corruption of one's soul, and cancel out past errors rather than pay for them. Atonement enables you to realize that your errors never really occurred. That's, in a sense, a relief, because depending on where you went to church or what faith you were brought up in, we were constantly being told that you're a sinner, you are going to hell, unless you do this, this, and this. And so many stories about religious leaders, I have read their concept of being, of taking on the faith and all, that they thought, hey, that's boring. That ain't no fun. But then once they get involved in, and I think it has more to do with the spirituality as opposed to religious dogma. Because what happens is when you become involved, you find ways, and the things that Jesus taught, the Christ taught, to me, it relieves us of all those burdens that so-called church or religious leaders try to hang on us and make us feel guilty and burdened down. His thing is take on my yoke, because my burden do you remember what I'm trying to say, Penelope? About being the burden, my yoke is easy, the burden is light, kind of thing. But that's not what we're being taught when we go to Sunday school and listen to the minister in the front of the church. Any thoughts?
Oh, hey, are y'all still here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm here.
Oh, oh yeah, we're not getting you, Forrest. I'm sorry. Are we still on the first sentence?
yeah. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
loud
go
and clear.
So yeah, Harry, I fully understand what you're saying, and I think it, to get back to this first point here, and and I think adding some validity to it, I just find it interesting that the whole setup to everything that we're about to talk about is understanding that there is one thing that has to be clear so that we can get rid of the fear about miracles.
Yeah.
And Penelope, I think your point is very well taken, in that because we are human, we get into this tendency of comparisons. Well, Jesus did this, I don't know if I can do this, even though Jesus said in the Bible, that you'll be able to do these works.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I think it was when I found that passage that made me realize that I've been sleeping on anything and everything that I've done.
Yeah.
And in that, maybe it's not much about me spending time judging what I'm doing, but more so spending time looking at the impact of what it is that I'm doing.
Mhm.
Which, oddly enough, is what we talked about in the last chapter. I'm remembering. So good to see y'all.
Hey, glad to see you too. Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, and I think that that is where we have to realize, because one of the things that we want to do is not to be so attached to ego and sensation, what our senses are experiencing, or what our surroundings are saying, and believing only what our five senses will do: see, taste, hear, feel, and what's the last one? Something else, can't remember.
Here.
Mouth.
Hear, yes, hear. Oh my gosh, forgot hearing. There you go, right there. So yeah, so when we are when we release every bit of the fear, because just because I didn't do it last time like I thought I was going to do it, what does that have to do with my doing it the next time? And I think that because we live in time, and time shows things in that type of value. If I have, I know how to tie my shoes, because every time I tie my shoes, it's not that I tie my shoe this time and now I can't tie my shoe because, I've never, I just can't do it. And then, after 7 or 18 attempts, now I have tied my shoe again. And I think that in spirituality, we expect that to look like what we think this life looks like. And and when I say we, I just basically mean me. I'll give myself the royal treatment here.
Okay.
I think, it's because, I am, I don't, because I can't see it in my mind. So I can't, it's difficult for me to relate to. I do have to disappear, because that's the whole point of renewing your mind, is that you merge completely with your essence of spirit, so that, yeah, I mean, it's okay for me to have some thoughts to, that I might want to watch a television show or whatever, and I have my own private thoughts, but I always know that each thought is shared with my essence, and I will participate more in my higher consciousness thoughts than I do of things that have to do with the manifest.
Right.
Anybody want to read number 2?
Since you started, why not you?
Okay. The crucifixion did not establish the atonement. The resurrection did. Let's do that as a whole. The crucifixion did not establish the atonement. The resurrection did. Many sincere Christians have misunderstood this. No one is free of the belief in scarcity. No one who is free of the belief in scarcity can make this mistake. Okay, so let's do 3 and 4, 2 and 3 together.
Okay.
I think 4 is going to have to be on its own.
Right.
The crucifixion did not establish the atonement. The resurrection did. And this is something that, Harriet and I was kind of discussing at first, because I don't know, I can't, for me, it's hard to separate the two. I can't see the resurrection without seeing the crucifixion.
Right.
So, and I guess what this is saying for me, what I'm understanding is, because the blood of Jesus is so important, because that's the only reason that he went to the cross anyway, because we needed that blood. He could have, just died like Buddha did, if that wasn't the requirement. So I guess, for me, I know I can't see one without the other.
I can.
Yeah. Okay. So help me with that.
Let me share with you what I when I first heard you say that, when you first read it. The crucifixion for me is what man does against God.
Mm-hmm.
The resurrection is what God does for man.
Okay.
So the crucifixion is man, humans, us, people, judging against Jesus, putting Jesus on the cross, nailing him to the cross, punishing him, doing that. The resurrection is God's promise to man, proof to man,
Right.
that I'm here, and also the promise in that, in terms of Jesus's symbolic, dying for our sins, like, and so for me, it gets interesting because you hear more people talk about the crucifixion than they do the resurrection.
You do. That part's very true.
And why? Because we have this inherent, and Harriet, you mentioned this earlier, because of this inherent fear that anytime we talk about God, more often than not, you hear more people talk about the wrath of God than the love of God.
Yeah.
And so I think it is the crucifixion is man taking it upon themselves to be in their tomfoolery. Jesus is crucified. Huh?
No, I was going to say that's what the whole thing is about anyway. Going all the way back to Adam and Eve from the beginning was what man did against God. So yeah.
So that's how I see him different. Is that the crucifixion was because of how man acted against Jesus, and the resurrection is God, Jesus, the promise, the
promise of eternal life.
Right. Yes. Thank you. I think that makes it simple. And so that's how I have grown now to see them simple, is who is the protagonist?
Right.
Who is the one that's driving the bus?
Well, how about you, Harriet? Well, Forrest, are you able to? I don't know if you're able to say anything with your phone.
It keeps going in and out, so I'm just listening.
Okay, all right. Okay. How about you, Harriet?
I kind of, first of all, I kind of referred back to miracle principle number 25. Miracles are part of an interlocking change of forgiveness, which, when completed, is the atonement. Atonement works all the time and in all dimensions of time. And what I'm seeing here is that atonement means that we, as Richard mentioned, we're at one with God, and the resurrection is what put us there. Because, and I'm still trying to get it straight in my head. What Richard was, how Richard broke down that crucifixion and resurrection idea. And I think what I need to reconcile is, because my thinking is that the resurrection would not have been, the resurrection would not have been necessary if the crucifixion didn't happen.
Right. So the atonement happened, but the crucifixion was a result of humans being out of pocket. They were wrong to crucify Jesus.
And wrong judgment.
And wrong judgment, exactly. So the crucifixion is because of that. The resurrection is the atonement, the reconciliation with man.
Right.
It is saying, although you did this to me, I still love you, and I'm going to show you by bringing Jesus back.
Okay, got you. Wow, that's powerful. True.
And let you know that I am God.
Okay.
And I still love you.
And going back to something, I think you said it, Richard, about how we're always talking about a vengeful God who's, pouring down his wrath on us. But in my study of A Course in Miracles, to me, God and love are synonymous.
Absolutely. I've been telling people for a while now, the only way I can understand God is love. God is synonymous with love. And with that, I was just seeing something. Like we were saying, the crucifixion was the wrong judgment, the wrongness of man, and Jesus's return was bringing harmony back to the land.
But so this is my understanding. This is the way I have always understood, like Christianity, is that the atonement is the blood. So without the crucifixion shedding the blood, we could not have had the resurrection, because the whole thing had to do with the blood. Now, the more I'm studying it, and I'm really, and I wish, I don't have it in my head enough, honestly, to cite to you where I'm getting this information from. But I know some of the things that I'm reading in the Kabbalah, some of the things that I'm reading in it's another book too. Anyway, a couple of books. But anyway, when we're thinking about the blood, that life-giving substance, that is that thing that makes us alive, not only physically, but spiritually. And that's why, for me, I always saw the crucifixion and the resurrection as a whole, because the two things add that whole semblance of life, that connection with spiritual life and physical life and metaphorical life. All of that life is together with, in understanding that with the blood, through the blood, we're resurrected. We're resurrected through the blood. When we die from crucifixion, the dying to old thoughts, old ideas, old ways, old habits, things that no longer feed us, that blood is taken away from that. I mean, but I remember when my mom was here, she was dying. She was, you know, in that process. It was so amazing because all of the blood circulated to the heart. It left all of the extremities of the body, and it only held on to the heart and the brain. And I thought that that was so fascinating because those are the main two things. Those are the main two things I think that you start off with. I think we start off with the brain and the spinal cord, and the heart comes from the heart. The heart is one of the first organs that is formed, and you know, something else that I was going to say. But anyway, but when you think of that whole life affirming action that includes everything, that's what I think that Jesus has. And when it says many sincere Christians have misunderstood this, I don't think we were taught it right in the first place, you know?
And I agree with that.
I don't think
Because
you-
we have been so busy separating religions. That's what I'm saying. I'm getting this from this religion. I'm getting something else from another religion. I'm getting something else from another religion that's teaching me about how to be a Christian, you know? So
And how do you process it?
when I started thinking about, because I had to really dig into the meaning of atonement because of what you just said. And the most simplest definition that I came up with, or I found in my own words, was like compensation for wrongdoing.
yeah.
And so when I start there, then I think, okay, the crucifixion was the wrongdoing.
Mhm.
The resurrection was making things right.
Mhm.
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 Oh, because I thought the wrongdoing had to do with Adam and Eve. Weren't they the ones who did wrong in the first place?
Well, yeah, but I think in the
Yeah.
context of what they're talking about here, they're talking about, you know, the crucifixion, that people for a long time, like Easter, for a long time, was really about the cross and what happened on the cross.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
not
And
about
even
the stone
now,
being rolled away.
even now, to this day, I had this Easter season on Good Friday. Somebody called me and was, you know, wanted me to, you know, be excited about the thing that Jesus was going through right now. What? Being resurrected?
Right.
No, why should I mean, if they
Jesus ain't up on Jesus ain't walking toward no cross today. Ain't no sense even looking back at that. Why are we looking back at that?
And consider why that is, because the whole impetus behind how we learn about God is through
pain.
through fear.
Through fear, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think
that word is used throughout the Bible that we should fear God. And every time I come across it, I cringe, because to me, like I said earlier, when I think of God, I think of love.
right.
Oh, what's the fear about love?
Yeah,
Right.
but that's another misconception, because it's not fear, it's respect. And so, you know, because interpretations are different, and they go by different connotations, and some people, they just simply couldn't read. We've only been literate in the world for the last 100 years, you know. So some of this has to do with us just trying to, you know, and still, how many people have actually read the Bible now? A lot of people don't, and still quoting from it and making up things that go along with it, you know. So we do misunderstand. And like when it says here, many sincere Christians have misunderstood this. You know, some of it is that we want to misunderstand it. We don't want to know the truth because, you know, we want to hold on to our egos, that human self, where we still beating up God.
I might even say that, you know, it's and it's not even the ego of the self, but it's the ego of the faith. That everything is about protecting the tradition of how we understand God. And I think where it gets important to me, and I think if y'all are okay, I'm going to go into 4, because I think 4 helps drive this point home, that we're talking here about scarcity and the death of Jesus and the sort of importance that we put around the crucifixion is censoring this idea of loss, is censoring this idea of scarcity, which kind of even more so speaks to this mistake that's being made. Because if you look at the resurrection as being the atonement, then it comes clear, Harriet, as you said earlier, that there is eternal life, that we don't have to think about Jesus's death and the center on the loss, that we can center on his coming back. And what does that mean in terms of, if I have a bad day, I can come back from that.
Mhm.
If I got negative $500 in the bank, I can come
Yeah.
back from that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. So I
Yeah.
think, there's something very interesting about, this connection between the crucifixion and this scarcity mindset that we battle all the time, and how Christians, large and whole, have easily misunderstood this, because everything is a struggle, everything is a fight, everything is
misunderstood, or were we manipulated into thinking that?
I think
Well, or is it a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. And I also, but you said earlier, ego. I think it's a combination of both, all rooted in the ego, because we misunderstand what ego is. Like, anytime I talk about ego, people think about egotistical.
Mhm.
And I'm like, nah, bro, like, I'm talking about the ego thinking, that thinking that makes you want to compare yourself to others, that thinking that makes you, think about yourself first.
Yeah.
Rather than seeing yourself as being part of a collective. Not the both and, not either or.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you, Richard.
Does that make sense? I'm just
Absolutely.
Yes, it did.
I'm just letting them flow.
It was good, Richard.
Now let's read 4. No one who is free of the belief in scarcity could possibly make this mistake.
Exactly.
So no one who is free of the belief in scarcity, that right there, it's
Oh, let me grab my pen.
And that takes us to miracle principle number 8.
Okay.
Miracles are healing because they supply a lack. They are performed by those who temporarily have more, for those who temporarily have less. So essentially, what that miracle principle is telling us, there's no such thing as scarcity.
Exactly.
Yeah, but we have to be free to believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you have to believe that in order to be free.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying it can go either way.
Yeah, because the thing is that you can't believe in scarcity.
Right.
You can't believe in scarcity. You have to be free from that belief. I can't believe that, that there is scarcity, but we have always, I think that's that attachment, that's that ego, that's where that whole fear comes from, because we see people who have more, we see people who have less, we see people die, so we know that, that we have a time limit here, so we see, storms come, we see sunshine, so we see the duality of it all. And it's easy to believe in that duality. And because that it looks like scarcity, you don't have enough time, and there's not enough time in a day. There's a saying for that, so if we that's a big that's that big part of that residual fear, because it's always, we're always being reminded that we live in time. We're always being reminded of that. I know that there's a principle for that, isn't it?
Yeah, let me check. You talking about time, dealing with time?
Yeah, because that's when we really can get out of that consciousness of only time, of being caught up in time. And it's something like that.
Mhm.
Because things look scarce in time. If I'm only going, they only live to be 35, So it looks like,
Right.
you run out, you don't have enough. There's always that lack syndrome that can show itself all the time. So that's a big fear to overcome.
Absolutely. That's why I had to go grab my notepad, because the words was coming. When we center on the resurrection,
Mm-hmm.
in doing so, we move the narrative of Jesus away from the loss of life, the crucifixion,
Right. Yes.
which is scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
We move away from that to abundance,
right,
which is the blessing that time is really an illusion. Because even if this body goes in the ground, there's more after that.
right, exactly.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, that hit me hard. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to meditate on that, because I think that's speaking to a big
Yeah.
block that I'm trying to cover right now. And so I knew something told me, said, hurry up, eat your sandwich and get over there with them people, with your people.
Yeah, and when you think about, now, I am much more free than I have been in the past, but there is still sensations of lack that come in. Sometimes it's amusing and funny. Like I was telling Harriet a few minutes ago, my grandson took the phone and ordered him $40 worth of DoorDash so that he could get $40 of McDonald's from DoorDash. So thank goodness, I got $40. But
Right.
is so that was comical. On the other end, if that's because I have $40. But on the other end, if I'm holding on to that last little $40 and now it's gone to DoorDash, now that's a whole, am I going to be as quick to see it as as abundance? So this is something that we always have to, I guess, to be sure-footed, we just have to move with the flow. We can't be rigid and say that if I have this, then this assures me that I don't have I don't have to have anything to be afraid of. If I have $1 million, then I don't have anything to be afraid of, because now I got plenty of money to make up for it. But in truth is that, what's money anyway? Just like you were saying, Richard, a few minutes ago, that, just because I'm going to be resurrected, I know I'm going to be resurrected, with this $40. I'm not even worried about it. Like I told Harriet, somebody just not going to get paid. That's all it is. But this is an experience that I have lived through. Now maybe 40 years ago, that might have been, oh my gosh, devastation and woe. But now, because I'm older and have more experience in life, but also I have seen miracles. I have seen miracles happen, so I know that I don't have anything to fear for real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
That
I
changed
don't,
a lot.
now
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, I know that if I was in that situation years ago, knowing, oh my God, where am I going to get $40 from? Kind of thing. Where now, oh well, and my mother used to have a saying, rob Peter to pay Paul. And that's exactly, and I understand that now better than I did when she used to say that, because I would actually see, a situation where I'm taking from one to give to the other. But the course teaches us that, well, that miracle principle number 8,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah. We don't have
miracles
to
are
be
healing because they
entitled.
supply a lack. They perform by
Mhm.
those who temporarily have more, for those who temporarily have less. And when we look at it from a material perspective, to one person, $1 million is like a gold mine. To another person, it's just a drop in the ocean.
Mhm. Yeah.
It all depends on what you desire, what you want, what you need, what you need
Mhm.
and all. That's the way I see it anyway.
Mhm. You were about to say something, Richard?
I was just sitting here thinking about it's just I'm replaying this, but when we place emphasis on the crucifixion, it perpetuates the scarcity mindset.
Yes. Mhm.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
When we
Absolutely.
place emphasis on the resurrection,
Mhm.
then we're placing more attention on abundance,
Mhm.
on it puts us out, it pushes us to think past what we see in terms of the limitations on life.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So depending on what narrative is pushed, if you push one of the narratives, you can actually show people and have people question, what fear should I have?
Exactly.
What should I fear
Right.
when I know that the unifying force can show us how much time is an illusion?
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's major. That's major. That's, Harriet, like we talk about history, the interpretation
Mhm.
of the historic narrative can drive people to prosperity, or it can drive people to fear.
Mhm.
And then you have
Mhm.
to ask, okay, well then, is it malicious? Like, because people profit off of fear.
yeah, they do.
Mhm. Yeah,
You
they
know,
do.
Um,
Big time.
and just recently, just this past weekend, and I'll stop. I really got into digging into these other books of the Bible, or these other books that are out there, how the Bible was constructed.
Right.
What are these other I'll say books, but they weren't really books, but what are these other pieces of evidence that talk about, things that Jesus said?
Mhm.
I think it was they call it the book of Thomas, I think it is.
The Gospel of Thomas.
The Gospel of
Gospel of
Thomas.
Thomas. Yeah.
And I was reading about that, and some of the stuff that's in there is actually
Gospel of
pretty
Thomas.
doggone convincing to
Yeah. Yeah.
spiritual, about consciousness.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Have you seen the lost books of the Bible? um, the edition that I have was edited by Lumpkin, and he includes not only the Gospel of Thomas, but also the Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
Right.
Mhm.
I was reading
And-
about that too.
Peter, the Gospel of
The
Peter.
Gospel of Peter.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, all of those, those things that have been hidden from our sight, because if we have known those, then we would believe in that. But see, all of those were parts of, the Gnostics lost. The Gnostics lost. So, they did, so all of their works were to disassociate it with. And but we but they weren't gotten rid of completely, because they're resurfaced, and
Exactly.
we have an opportunity to see and read them now,
Exactly.
so that we can get a fuller picture.
Mhm.
Right.
Let's see. So y'all want to move
And-
on? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just again. I don't know why, but I always seem to come back to seeing Thomas Jefferson flip and cut and paste those parts of the Bible that he felt was
That part. The same night I was looking into the different parts of the Bible, I came to the Jefferson's Bible, and I was like, how real is that? I'm sitting here
Really?
making a comparison to how the Bible was put together and how it's talked about, to how history is put together and how it's talked about. And then you can go to a big name and celebrated name like Thomas Jefferson and find that he himself took the pieces that he liked, cut them out, and pasted them together.
Yeah.
Took out the parts he didn't.
Exactly. I am very often tempted to do the same thing myself.
I'll read the next one.
Okay, go ahead.
If the crucifixion is seen from an upside down point of view, which we're saying is the norm, it does appear as if God permitted and even encouraged one of his sons to suffer because he was good.
How cruel.
But see, that's what the fear is. I mean, that's why, many people, they don't want to, when you're young, I don't want to have nothing to do with God. He might ask something of me.
That's right.
And you always get read stories with Job, and Job, and Job, him, God and the devil had a bet, and then you read about what was the one that went into the whale?
Jonah.
Jonah.
That's Jonah.
Yeah, so those things like that, is mess around with God too much, and gee whiz, something terrible could happen to you, So and so we always have this idea that in order to be like God, there had to be some type of suffering. It had to be some type of misery, some type of shenanigans that God was up to,
Why?
I don't know why. And I really think it's just like, we were humans, we were so fearful of the power that we have. Because look what we do with power now. Can you imagine that if everybody was using 100% of their brains, just their brains, not even their minds, just their brains, what kind of mess we would be in this world? So yeah, we have to keep ourselves shut down, because we don't know how to love. If we really knew how to love, I think that would be that that turning point where we could really use all of our brain and use all of our consciousness, our wholeness. Because you don't hurt the thing that you love.
And,
Yes.
and in order to give unconditional love, you have to love yourself to begin with, unconditionally, and not compare yourself to others. I am me, I'm the perfect me.
Yeah.
And I love me the way I am. So if I can love me the way I am, I can love you for however you want to be. And I can love you equally. And basically that's what we're taught. That's what Jesus taught anyway.
Yeah. But when you think about God, because we gotta, from especially from a Christian point of view, and we're talking about Christians here. You got that Old Testament God that was, spite them all.
Vengeful.
Smite them all, then
Exactly.
then there's this shift and this change, when Jesus comes around and and makes the whole atmosphere whole again. But we have to get to this point where we're not trying to, we're still separating the two levels of consciousness. We have to put them together, because yes, there was a time for severity, and still might be a time of severity. There is that lane that fits there, where things are severe. The weather can be severe. The a volcano, or some type of natural occurrence can be very severe. But we also have to have the consciousness that we don't have to create severity, that we can stay in love and create wholeness and what you call it, like when things are intertwined, interwoven, I guess that's not the word I'm looking for. But what'd you say, Forrest?
Intermix.
Yes. Okay, we can't have that much dead air, y'all.
I wanted to, what I found interesting here is that for a long time, up until maybe 20 minutes ago, I've always been thinking about, God permitted this to happen. God permitted this to happen. And I'm putting just a lot of stuff together, including the conversation what happened now, and just realizing the flaw there. It's not about God permitting things to happen to us. You know how people say, why does God take a baby away? And why does this? No, beloved. It's not about God permitting anything to happen to us.
Right.
We are made in his image, which for me means that we are, which equates to our consciousness. Not about our physical appearance, but our consciousness. And that we have the power within. However, one of y'all talked about separation, and then it hit me. I was like, not only is like separation is an illusion, including this perceived separation with God. Yes. That we get so caught up in wanting to worship God and to serve God that we overlook the fact that we are connected to God, that God is within us, which also speaks to how in the early period, because masculine thought was the dominating figure, that's why God has the pronoun of he.
Right.
Again, this idea of separation and this interconnection with God, and the fact that, it's not like God is sitting there saying, all right, I'm gonna let that happen. No, God is watching us let this stuff happen. Sometimes being part of it. All of us collectively. That's mind blowing.
we we often, too often, I would say, forget that we have choices,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
goes back to what you just said. God didn't cause anything to happen. We had the choice in any situation.
And the more connected we are with our creative essence, the more we will only experience that good. Say there is a hurricane coming. That's why people who were really once upon a time ago, who were really connected to the earth, they understood that, okay, this volcano is getting ready to erupt. Let's move out to so and so or such and such, and then maybe we'd be able to come back, or here, this section of land has a lot of tornadoes. We're not going to live right here. We moved because we were more connected to the earth and more connected. Our consciousness was more connected with our higher consciousness, and especially the more we were as a collective. But now that we have separated ourselves into tiny little spheres, it can be difficult for us to have that upside down point of view. If I really truly only believe in physicality, then I'm not going to trust anything else.
Which, and I'll say this, and then I can read the next one if it works. But we started this off by talking about before any residual fears still associated. A further point must be perfectly clear before any residual fear still associated with miracles can disappear. When you think about the crucifixion, we prioritize that more than the resurrection. The same way that we prioritize the damage of a hurricane rather than the miracles that happen as a result of it.
Yes.
And so in all of the situations that we look at, time and time again, we're talking about how fear drives us. And because it does drive us, attention goes, energy flows, attention goes. I keep mixing it up. But because we place that attention on the fearful stuff, that's where we place our energy, and we completely overlook and miss the miracles that happen. Penelope, as you were saying earlier, how we sometimes overlook the stuff that we consider small, which are miracles. So I'm connecting the dots. This is a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, go ahead and move on. Well, we started a little bit late because but we have just a couple more sentences, but these are heavy sentences. So.
Got you. Number 6, this particularly unfortunate interpretation, which arose out of projection, has led many people to be bitterly afraid of God.
Yes. Yeah. That's just,
Which at some points in time, which at certain points in times in history, that was by design.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about, we mentioned a little bit earlier about those so-called lost books of the Bible. That came about by design, because those that were in power decided, no, we can't have people dealing with this. We're gonna give them only this part. And it's just like, and it has drifted down through the ages. This whole concept of, I'm going to give you what I want you to have so I can control how you behave or how you act, or kind of thing. And I was thinking mainly of the whole idea of slavery, especially here in what was the colonies and later on the United States. That whole idea of being able to control people. And of course, you're bringing these individuals here that are forcing these people to come here, not of their will, not of their design. They don't speak the language, totally out of their element. And the way you treat them puts fear in them. And it's all a matter of being able to control ego and power and control is what it boils down to.
Mm-hmm. And then you have people that are coming from, say, the land, and their spirituality was connected in the land, and now you're taught that you have to believe like this. And as a couple of generations go through, yeah, now the blending begins, but now you have just basically the fear that's a part of the religion. I mean, the spiritual connection to the earth. And with the, now you have misunderstanding in that religious part. So, so yeah, of course we would become bitterly afraid of God, because God is always watching, and God is, you can't think this, and if you do this, and then if you step on the crack, and a whole lot of other things that are attached to it, because you don't know how to actually live. Because I know I was always taught to have faith, but nobody told me what faith was and how to have it. And then when you ask people, they would give a little bit of what they understood, but it wasn't always necessarily relatable, or I had a hard time relating to that. So we weren't, so and that just kind of like added more fear, because how come I don't know what faith is? How can I really truly love God without faith? And so it was always so much that, and I like is just this particularly unfortunate interpretation, which arose out of projection. And see, somebody's always projecting their fears
onto somebody else.
So that now, that's a part of that collective consciousness. And it takes a lot to break away from that, because it's a whole not only a vibration, but it's a whole frequency of its own. Oh, that now I have to wade through.
Yo, I'm just like blown away. Like, you said something earlier about how so many people haven't read the Bible, and I'm realizing, me too.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because I picked my book up and I saw something about because I was looking at the next verse and something caught my eye, and it says sacrifice is a notion totally unknown to God. And I was like, what? And I started looking it up, and I saw what Jesus said about it. And I was like, okay, I'll just stop right there. Wow. You were absolutely right.
Well, then you just mentioned the next sentence, so go ahead.
Such anti-religious concepts enter into many religions. I mean, should I go on? Because that seems pretty simple to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yet the real Christian should pause and ask, how could this be? The power of questions. And I think what I'll just say something about that real quick, in that in many places, that's what this is stating as what the real Christian should do. In many places, they will run you out of that church.
Oh, you better believe. You better
To question God's word. When
Yeah.
the reality is that we're questioning someone's interpretation of the word.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
So then the question is again, how could this be? And I think there's something very interesting about the questions that we ask ourselves, the questions we should ask ourselves rather than taking what a preacher's interpretation is as, stock value.
Exactly. And I mean, those are some things that we should, but then, just like you said, so much has been left out and some things have been
Misinterpreted.
Sometimes purposefully misinterpreted, but that's, first of all, I think that's why you got to have a whole bunch of Bibles. You should have, as many Bibles as you have, anything else in your house, because you can't just read one interpretation and gain all of the wisdom and knowledge that comes from that, because that's, it's like you said, it's a translation, it's translated by somebody who's in leadership at the time, and it's not full enough. And I think that we don't pause and ask ourselves that enough. It's usually if our religion says this, that's the thing that we can count on, and that's the thing that we believe. And so many people, if you talk about the Bible, they say, well, I'm not religious. Well, the Bible doesn't really have anything to do with religion. Honestly.
Thank you.
If you can read the Bible and not be religious, but so many people, because they believe that God is whatever their religion is. So
some ogre out there in space that's going to scare the living daylights out of them.
Right. And I was talking to a guy earlier this week who told me he was saying, I live by the word of God. I said, wait. Are you talking about the Bible? He was like, well, whatever word of God is there? I said, well, I was always taught that was the word of God, but I don't think that's the word of God. That's the word of man reflecting on God.
That's right.
And then being translated over time. And I've been to Cancun. I don't speak Spanish. So I know how difficult it is for me to order a Big Mac.
Right.
Right? Because it's not that easy. It's not that simple. And so he could never understand what I was telling him was that, bro, this passage right here tells you that Jesus is the word of God. He is the living manifestation of the word of God. Yeah. So the charge should be to emulate Jesus rather than to use the Bible as a handbook.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, you got to read the Bible in order to understand that. I said, you can read the Bible, but that doesn't necessarily help you understand it. You have to get your connection. You got to get you got to get with your star player.
Right.
You got to get your alignment right. Because then now you are equipped with discernment. And now you release the fear. Now you can use your intuition. And with your discernment and your intuition, now you know what you're reading rather than living what's in the book. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay.
No, because I mean, I think that's what, and not just Christianity. I mean, I think we're speaking of Christianity because this paragraph so heavily emphasizes it, but I think that's everybody's religion.
Exactly.
We all get caught up into the religion of it, especially if it's organized. We a lot of times get caught up into the religion of it, forsaking sometimes the message, so because everybody's message says the same thing, to love one another.
Exactly.
And that we are all one. That's what everybody says eventually.
And I mean, it's in somewhere in the Old Testament. Jesus taught it to his disciples, and his disciples or the apostles that followed him did the same thing. The message is love yourself, love your neighbor as
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. He told us, I know that passage as well. Love God with all your heart, with all your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second commandment was love each other as you love yourself.
Exactly.
Which I think is always interesting, because if you don't have self-love, then you will love people in the way that you do love yourself.
I think that's what the problem is.
That's the problem.
We love everybody the way we love ourselves. We don't.
And
Okay, let's read number 9 because it's 6:27.
oh my goodness.
It is likely that God himself would be is it likely that God himself would be capable of the kind of thinking which his own words have clearly stated is unworthy of his son? And I do know that even throughout the Old Testament, all of the prophets said that, God always speaks of himself as loving, even when there are these harsh things, it seems, I think that, let's just take Sodom and Gomorrah for an example. Even that harsh thing that was coming, I think that God was trying to tell him, this thing is happening to Sodom and Gomorrah anyway. It was some forethought. It wasn't always something that was so horrible, especially against gay people, or against being so attached to sin and sexuality. I think that's we got confused because, first of all, we don't understand metaphysical interpretations, the differences of the energies that they were talking about combining, but also because we don't have the right words. We don't really know what that thing that was talking about. But God, when he said he sent people there to get people out of there. All of that is loving, even when all of the harsh things, kill them all, kill the babies, kill the cows, kill the goats, kill everybody. We don't know whether there was a scourge on the land or not. We are so caught up into the vengeance part. We don't know the whole story. We only know a small segment of it. And for us to always be thinking in terms of what somebody else says and what somebody else has thought, or what somebody else's conclusion is, because what is the purpose of loving that guy? I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna love you. If I don't love you, you're gonna send me to hell. I mean, that's that boyfriend you really don't want. You don't want that love. You're trying to get away from him. I don't want to be with this dude. So when you think about, how we have been so committed to this idea of fear, that we are so committed to our subjugating ourselves, where we're not worthy. We are so committed to that we will buy anything. We will buy into anything that tells us that that's who we are. That's really sad.
It is. Yes, it is.
Okay, well, any other questions or comments on that one? Y'all, come on now.
Is it likely that God himself would be capable of the kind of thinking which his own words have clearly stated is unworthy of his son? The thing that popped into my head, and I just had to review something, somebody posited or presented to me a thought before that felt true, but this passage leads me to that. And I think part of the issue to some of this is how we think of God as being a static being.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's really important there too.
That we don't
talk
think
about
of,
that all the time.
right. If we say that God is living, then God is growing, God is evolving over time. And so I think is it likely that God himself will be capable of the kind of thinking, which his own words are clearly stated, is I don't believe that God is going to say one thing and do another.
Right.
Really?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And because that's the creator.
Yeah.
It's not man. Man does that.
Mhm.
Man does that. And so if we are in the stage of creating God, then yeah, we'll create a God that will say one thing and do something
Right. Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah, because why would we hurt ourselves?
Right.
So why would we hurt ourselves?
Unless you are of a destructive nature.
But even then, it's just because you're ignorant of the pain, because if you kept stabbing yourself in the leg, and you might have some sense, you might be, you might not realize it, but there's going to be something else that's going to come to you that shows you that you are stabbing yourself in the leg. You might be just bleed out or something. Because even if we look at our planet today, and we have always had, these times where we, fight each other and all of this stuff. I think that, when we really realize that we are really killing ourselves, we do it all the time. We do it over and over and over again. We do something to hurt ourselves. And then once we realize that we hurt ourselves, ow, ooh, ouch, that hurt. So now we stop for about 50, 70 years, and then we do something else dumb again. We keep stabbing ourselves in the leg. So I think that is a very common thought, that God, that God thinks like us, that he would hurt himself, or he would tell us to, that we're unworthy of him if we don't think like he thinks. And I don't think that God is
like that.
Is like that. I think that
No.
God is ever unfolding and can keep up.
Right.
God can keep up. He can keep up with my thoughts, and and bring that into wholeness.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to head on out because Expedia is calling me back now. They gotta fix my stuff. So I love y'all.
Okay.
Never mind. He hung up already.
Okay. Can you real quickly just give us your take of today's session and how you can apply it to your life?
This session today was mind blowing for me, and I am so humbled because I'm working through some stuff, and this is actually helping me get free.
Amen. Amen.
So I think the big things for me today was just thinking about where we place our attention and how that causes our energy to flow in that regard. If we think more about the crucifixion, then it puts us in one particular place. If we think about the resurrection, then it puts us in a better place, a place that is more free. It helped me to rethink the importance of Jesus's resurrection and also how I can continue to reframe how I think about God. One thing, I mentioned, as an evolving being, but also how ingrained, and even in our subconscious, that even without thinking, when we think about God, we think about him flooding. or
Right.
him doing, these sorts of, you know, in what appears to be inhumane acts,
Mhm.
when really it's different than that,
Yeah.
and that God is love. And I appreciate you, Harry, for kind of, continuing to bring that to the forefront.
Thank you. Thank you. How about you,
Welcome.
Harriet? What did you get from this today's session, and how can you apply it to your life?
Well, the important thing to me is that I got out of today's lesson is the fact that we need to, or I do anyway, need to acknowledge the crucifixion, but I need to focus on the resurrection, because that means life. That means life eternal. That means that as long as I can stay on that path of enlightenment, my life will be better all around. I can be a more loving mother. I can be a more loving friend. I can be a more loving, whatever the relationship is that I have with someone else. And when I can do that, I can do anything.
Mhm.
Mm.
Thank you.
Nope,
That was
here you go.
beautiful.
All right,
Yeah.
love y'all.
Okay, love you
Love
too.
you.
All right,
Mhm.
bye.
Bye.
I think for myself, what my big takeaway is like this first sentence here is just to try to be able to acknowledge all of the residual fears.
Mhm.
What am I calling? Am I seeing lack here? Am I, what am I responding to? I really want to pay attention, because miracles happen all the time. And I have had big miracles happen to me in my life, and I have had small miracles, happen to me in my life. And I want to be able to see each and every thought as a miracle. And, I think I do have to take it thought by thought.
Mhm.
I had to take, because I think that helps me take it more seriously. So that's for me. Okay, well, tomorrow we have Forrest will come in the morning, hopefully. You'll see what's going on with him in his session for I am. That is 11 to about 11:30. Then from 7 p.m. to 8:30, we have the class. The class is the book. We're continuing in our study of the book of Longing. Saturday, I can't remember anything for Saturday. What's going on Saturday? That's the first. Did we have it? Oh, I guess that's supposed to be our finish. We're supposed to be finishing up with the angels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, I really have to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry, I gotta go. I really have to go to the bathroom. Okay, everybody, bye. Say I'm
Bye.
here, Harriet. I'm sorry, bye.
Bye.
That's it for me for today. I'm trying to close it up. All right, well, I gotta go.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.